book of Exodus, chapter 5 and chapter 7. And I'm going to read portions of the scriptures that are printed in the bulletin. Okay. Afterwards, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, so that they may celebrate a festival to me in the wilderness." But the Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord, that I should heed him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning, as he is going out to the water. Stand by at the river bank to meet him, and take in your hand the staff that was turned into a snake. Say to him, 'The Lord and the God of the Hebrews sent me to you to say, let my people go, so that they may worship me in the wilderness. But until now you have not listened. Thus says the Lord, by this you shall know that I am the Lord. See, with the staff that is in my hand, I will strike the water that is in the Nile, and it shall be turned to blood. The fish in the river shall die, the fish itself shall stink, and the Egyptians shall be unable to drink water from the Nile." Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord commanded. In the sight of Pharaoh and of his officials, he lifted up the staff and struck the water in the river, and all the water in the river was turned into blood, and the fish in the river died. Now here's the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now please be seated. Well, brothers and sisters in Christ, grace and peace to you from God our Father and our Lord and the brother Jesus the Christ. Well, today's story is from Exodus, the emancipation of Israel in Egypt. Most of us are familiar with this story. And many of you probably remember the song in Sunday school days, "Pharaoh, Pharaoh, let my people go." But do you know that the story of Exodus was once a forbidden story to the enslaved Africans in the Caribbean islands? In the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., thousands and thousands of artifacts and documents are on display to demonstrate the unparalleled influences of the Bible on human history, on civilization. Of all the items on display at that museum, a rare Bible from 1800s seems to get more attention and interest from the media and visitors than other exhibits. This rare Bible has been called the Slave Bible, S-L-A-V-E, has been called the Slave Bible by the media, but it was actually titled "Parts of the Holy Bible Selected for the Use of the Negro Slaves in the British West India Islands." Most of the Old Testament is missing, and only about half of the New Testament remains in the Slave Bible. The reason? Well, so that the enslaved Africans in the Caribbean islands could not read or be read anything that might incite them to rebel. The reason was as simple as that. Passages that emphasized equality between groups of people were excised. This included Galatians chapter 3, verse 28. Let me read it. There is no longer Jew or Greek. There is no longer slave or free. There is no longer male or female, for all of you are one in Christ Jesus. That verse is omitted in the Slave Bible. In contrast, One of the passages that remained in the slave Bible was one that proponents of slavery loved to cite. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with fear and trembling, in singleness of heart, as you obey Christ, which is from Ephesians chapter 6, verse 5. As I said, 90% of the Old Testament was omitted in the slave Bible. But the story of Joseph was included in that Bible. Why was that? Well, it's hard. It's not hard to guess. Joseph was sold by his own brothers as a slave and was purchased by Potiphar in Egypt. And Potiphar was a captain of the guards of Pharaoh. Joseph was hardworking and obedient to his master. Okay? And God was with Joseph and helped him along the way. And eventually Joseph became the prime minister of Egypt. So from the point of view of slave owners, from the viewpoint of the proponents of slavery, Joseph was a model slave and was richly rewarded by God for his obedience. Now, what about the story of Moses, the story we just heard? The most famous story in the Old Testament? Well, no. That story could not be included in the slave Bible. Okay? Because Moses and his compatriots were not obedient slaves. They were rebels. They were freedom fighters. They were revolutionaries. Now, don't you think the editors and the producers of the slave Bible misinterpreted and misused and abused the Bible? Let's look at the story of Moses. About 400 years after the time of Joseph, Israelites became enslaved people in the land of Egypt. Not only that, Pharaoh adopted the policy of ethnic cleansing and genocide by ordering the killing of every male baby of Israelites. Baby Moses, however, miraculously survived and was adopted by the daughter of Pharaoh. Moses grew up in Pharaoh's palace and lived a life of privilege and luxury. Somehow, adult Moses found out that he actually belonged to the oppressed people of Israel. As a man of courage, as a man with a strong sense of justice, Moses believed that his people's pain and suffering would be his. And he determined to help alleviating the misery of his own people. One day, Moses saw an Egyptian overseer torturing a slave. And Moses threw himself on the man and killed that Egyptian. That was his first act of doing justice. And then, the other day, he saw two Israelites quarreling. When one began to strike the other, Moses intervened and admonished the culprit. You wicked man, why are you striking your brother? Why are you striking your brother? You're supposed to love to help your brother, right? This was Moses' second act of doing justice. But this time, he was not successful because the man responded angrily, saying, Who are you? Who are you? Are you planning to kill me as you did the Egyptian? Moses realized that his killing of the Egyptian overseer was no longer a secret. He was afraid for his own life, and so he ran away into the land of Midian. So Moses married one of the daughters of the priest of the Midianites. For 40 years, Moses lived in his new adopted land and without ever worrying about the fate of his own people. It seemed as if he completely forgot the suffering, the misery of his own people. God, however, did not forget the oppressed Israel. God called Moses and commanded Moses to go back to Egypt to lead his people out of Egypt. Moses was hesitant at first, and eventually he accepted God's commissioning. Moses went back to Egypt and asked Pharaoh to let Israel go, so that, what's the reason? So that Israel might worship God in the wilderness. It's very interesting to notice that Moses' argument for the end of slavery was based on the ground of religious freedom. Let my people go so that they may worship God of my ancestors, so that they may offer sacrifice to God in the wilderness. Moses believed that Israelites could not worship God in a land that oppressed and enslaved them. He believed that political oppression and economic enslavement and the true worship of God were not compatible. That means Moses' demand of religious freedom was at the same time the call to end slavery. For Moses, faith in the God of Israel could not be separated from the pursuit of justice and freedom. Pharaoh, however, hardened his heart and refused to let Israel go, so God had to force Pharaoh to change his mind. And God did that by sending the 10 plagues on the people and the land of Egypt. The first plague was turning the water into blood. The 10th, and the worst one, was the death of firstborn children of Egyptians. It was so tragic and heartbreaking that the people of Egypt suffered one disaster after another only because Pharaoh hardened his heart and refused to end the slavery. And we cannot help but ask the question, couldn't God not use violence to end the violence of slavery? Couldn't God not resort to killing of Egyptian children to end the evil that cost so many lives of Israelites? And I'm wondering why the path to freedom has, in many cases, to be paved by the blood. Why shouldn't be a peaceful way, non-violent way to change Pharaoh's heart? That's the question I'm struggling with when I read this text. And then I remember that north and the south fought a brutal war over slavery in America. Slavery in America ended in and with the Civil War, and 620,000 men from North and South died during that brutal war. And we cannot help but ask the question once again, does freedom must be won with violence, with blood shedding? There are no easy answers to those questions. What I can tell you is that ancient Israelites struggled with the question of justice and peace, of freedom and of violence. The Talmud is a collection of Jewish laws and traditions, second only to the Holy Bible in terms of authority in the Judaism. According to a story in the Talmud, after Israelites won their freedom, they began to join Moses and sing a song of celebration. And when the angels also joined the Israelites and began to sing, God interrupted and cried out, "My creatures are perishing in the Red Sea, and you are singing?" S-I-N-G-I-N-G. Are you singing? My creatures are perishing. Refers to Egyptians, right? Egyptians, they are my creatures. They are my children. They are perishing in the sea. Are you singing? So, let's keep it in mind that God did not take delight. God did not take, in the pleasure of the death of Egyptians. And remember, when the Jews celebrate Passover and eat their Seder meal, they retell the story of Exodus, including the story of 10 plagues. At one point, the head of the household will dip a finger and spill first 3 drops of wine and then 10 drops of wine to signify their compassion for the Egyptians who were also victims of the hardened heart of the Pharaoh. And they did that to drop the 10 drops of the wine to manifest their sadness for the loss of lives. As Christians, we are to remember Jesus' teaching, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. As Christians, we must follow Jesus' teaching and pursue justice in a non-violent and peaceful manner. Pharaoh was the man of hardened heart, but we have to act with a tender and a compassionate heart. As I said in the beginning, Galatians 3, chapter 3, verse 28 was not found in a slave Bible. But if we are going to learn something important from the story of Moses, if we want to do justice, let's pay special attention to that Bible verse, Galatians 3:28. It says, there is no longer Jew or Greek. Let's ask ourselves the tough question. Do we believe people of all races and all nationalities are children of God? Do we believe people of all races, all colors, all nationalities have equal value? What can we do to fight racism and to end racial prejudice and racial injustice in our society? Galatians 3:28 says, there is no longer slave and free. Let's ask a tough question. How much do we know about the modern slavery and the human trafficking? You know that? Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people have been trafficked in the global economy. What can we do Do we believe that poor people and rich people have equal value in the eyes of God? Will God let the gigantic rich and poor gap exist and continue in today's global economy? If not, what responsibilities do we have for the poor people in this country and in other parts of the world? Galatians 3:28 says, there is no longer male and female. Let's ask ourselves, does God want us to strive for gender equality, the equality between male and female? What does gender equality mean to us? What does gender equality look like in family, in workplace, in economy, in politics? And ask this question, what do we as Christians understand the role of gender and the sex and the sexuality and the sexual orientation in human relationship and in human culture? The Bible says, Galatians 3:28, for all of you are one in Christ Jesus. To be one in Christ Jesus means we are all connected with one another by and through and in Jesus Christ. That means I cannot be concerned only with my own pain and gain, losses and blessings, but also the pains and the gains, the losses and the blessings of many, many others. My redemption and salvation is closely and intimately connected with the redemption and the salvation of the whole world. Moses could have lived a life of security and privilege in Pharaoh's palace for the rest of his life. But God called him out to be the prophet and the liberator of his own people. As followers of Jesus Christ, we cannot live in a self-imposed cocoon, separating ourselves from the rest of humanity. Like Moses, we must get involved in the struggles and the conflicts in this world. We must take to heart what God said through Micah, another great prophet in the Old Testament. God says through Micah, what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? In Jesus' name, amen.